Hello guys, let's take a look at the latest version of the router. No, not the router, the debugger. Sorry, I was just answering someone about the router. Let's see, I have moved the toolbar. Let's just remove the console here. I have moved the toolbar to the top again, and I have created like this background thingy, like a texture on the signals, which makes it a bit more like comfortable, or what should I say, a better user experience when you start dragging these signals back and forth. Okay, so let's fire off some signals, and as we can see, I'm now just using my pad to scroll, but I can also click and drag like this to move between the signals, and if I click one, it focuses on that signal. Okay, so now we have like drag on it, and I also made sure that like I can drag and move the mouse wherever, so it doesn't stop just because I move the mouse outside the bar here. Okay, so that's one change, and I also added, like you can see, it says sync here. So if I hit enter, it doesn't say sync. So that it could be indicated differently, but I just wanted to put it in there first. And then we'll see if we're going to change it. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about something that might seem a bit confusing, but I don't think it is when you don't think about it. And that is if I move back now in time. So instead of remember, we have go to. If I click that now, we have moved back in time. And if I now, let's put up the console again, if I now try to do any kind of change to cerebral, it will say looking in the past, ignored signal. And the reason we have to do this is because you cannot change the past. Like I actually wrote hey or something here, and if I go in here and I suddenly change or add a new signal here, where should that signal appear? Should it appear right after this one? Which is really strange, because when the next signal triggers, it will, like if I say hep instead, and I move forward in the signals and I get to this signal up here, then it suddenly will say hey again. So the only way to really change, to really handle this, is when I move back into the past and I make a signal change. Then it should just wipe out the future and kind of like rewrite history, which is kind of cool. But the problem there is that what if you're having some interval running, like, or maybe some event registered to Firebase, and suddenly you are looking into the past, and suddenly some signal is triggered, not because you wanted to rewrite history, just because some signal triggered. Then it will just automatically do it without you approving it. So that wouldn't work either. So this is kind of like a hard problem, but what we decided to do is, okay, so when you move back in time, all signals are ignored. You're focusing on this specific point in time, and any kind of signal is ignored. But if I now hit this button, rewrite, now we have removed all signals in the future, and we can create new ones. So now we have effectively rewritten history. So this allows you, like typically when you, for example, have some initial signals when you fire up your application, and you have remembered some state. So you refresh the application, which then has a history of running the initial signals, and maybe you have triggered some signals yourself. And then you refresh the application, and suddenly you just wanted to continue on where you were, but since your application loads again, it triggers the initial signals again. Then you can just move back to the signal you had when you refreshed, and then you can click rewrite, and then you continue from that point. So that's a way to handle those kinds of situations. Okay. And if you haven't seen it, like the cool thing about this debugger is that I can just move back into history, like without, like I can look at historic signals without actually moving back in state, with like changing the state of the application. And if I run something asynchronous and I trigger new signals, they will appear with the currently running signal. So whenever there's a yellow signal here, if there's new signals triggered, they will come under it or appear under it. And that allows you to, for example, if I move here and I want to remember this specific part, go to, then it will remember all the signals. And this has to do with how these signals affect each other. And the thing is that there will be certain crazy edge situations where this can get messed up. But we are not remembering state because it's a debugging tool. So it's not like a feature of cerebral. So it's not something you're going to expose to your users. But the edge case is when you have a signal running and another signal starts during that, which also is asynchronous and triggers a third signal. And then the first signal continues as the second signal still is running. Then it won't remember that technically correct. But the edge case is that it would only affect your state if you were actually changing the same state in a different way on all these or on the two first signals. So yeah, as you can imagine, it's a crazy edge case scenario. But yeah, we have to be honest about the limitations. But I think this is moving along really nicely, and I think we are moving into a place where it's okay to launch it. One more thing I promised Brian I would ask is if I move the debugger down here. Now it's really nice to have all the signals here, but the actions down here is not very, like it's taking over half my screen just to use it. So I'm not really sure how we should display this. Maybe when we have, like when the width is longer than the height, maybe we should just have a list of actions like this, and when you click an action, we have a window on the right side displaying like the inputs, the mutations, and the outputs. So then you could probably move it down a little bit, but again, I'm not sure, like the debugger looks better on this side and it's more usable. But yeah, that's an open question, so please provide some feedback if you have some ideas, and let's do another iteration and get this thing out there. Thanks.